My name is Dana Parker, 32 years old, and until last week I was a senior software engineer at TechVision. When Nicole blocked the doorway, announcing, "You are not allowed inside," handing my office keys to Harold's niece, I knew my moment had arrived. The clause I'd insisted on in my contract was about to change everything. I smiled, knowing $55 million was hanging in the balance. Before I tell you how I sank an entire funding round, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, hit subscribe, and get ready for the most satisfying corporate karma you'll hear today. I joined TechVision 3 years ago, after graduating with honors from MIT and spending 4 years at Google. I wasn't just good at my job, I was exceptional. My specialty was in developing self-learning algorithms for predictive analytics, which might sound complex, but essentially I created software that could predict user behavior with frightening accuracy. This technology was exactly what TechVision needed to differentiate itself in the overcrowded tech startup space. When I first interviewed with Harold Mitchell, TechVision's founder and CEO, I was impressed by his vision. He talked about creating technology that would revolutionize how businesses understand their customers, and I believed him. He had the charisma and business acumen of a seasoned tech veteran, despite TechVision being only 5 years old at the time. The company had already secured 3 rounds of funding and was valued at $120 million. "Dana, your expertise is exactly what we need to take our platform to the next level," Harold told me during our final interview. "I've interviewed dozens of engineers, but none of them understand both the theoretical and practical applications of machine learning like you do." I negotiated hard for my contract. After being overlooked for promotions twice at Google despite leading successful projects, I had learned to protect myself. My lawyer, Rachel Winters, suggested adding a specific clause regarding intellectual property and project management. This clause ensures that any technology you develop remains under your supervision until final implementation, she explained. It also requires written consent for any leadership changes on projects you initiate. At the time, Harold had laughed it off. "That's fine, Dana. We have no intention of taking you off projects you develop. Your expertise is why we're hiring you." I led a team of 4 talented engineers: Brandon Cooper, a back-end specialist with an uncanny ability to optimize any code; Sofia Rodriguez, our UI divided by UX expert, who could translate complex data into intuitive visuals; Ethan Wright, a database architect who had previously worked at Amazon; and Taylor Johnson, our newest member who specialized in security protocols. Together, we formed the core of TechVision's development team. Our flagship project, which we called Oracle, was my brainchild. Oracle could analyze customer data and predict not just what products they might want to buy next, but when they would be most receptive to marketing, what price points would trigger purchases, and which features mattered most to them. It wasn't just incremental improvement on existing analytics, it was revolutionary. By our 2nd year, Oracle had become TechVision's primary selling point. Our beta clients reported an average increase in conversion rates of 37%. Word spread quickly in the tech community, and suddenly venture capitalists were calling Harold daily. "Series D funding is practically guaranteed," Harold announced during a company meeting 6 months ago. "We're looking at $55 million, possibly more. Bridgewood Partners is particularly interested." Bridgewood was one of the most prestigious venture capital firms in Silicon Valley, known for backing companies that eventually went public with valuations in the billions. Richard Lawrence, the principal partner at Bridgewood, had personally visited our offices twice. Both times he had spent hours with me and my team asking detailed questions about Oracle's architecture and capabilities. "This is impressive work," he told me during his 2nd visit. "The predictive accuracy rates you're achieving are beyond anything I've seen in the market." Everything was going perfectly. TechVision was 6 weeks away from closing the Series D round. Our valuation was projected to hit $300 million. Harold had hinted at equity packages for key employees, including myself. The future couldn't have looked brighter. Then Alicia Mitchell arrived, and everything changed. I first noticed the shift during a routine Monday morning meeting. Harold arrived with a young woman I didn't recognize. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet my niece, Alicia," Harold announced with unusual enthusiasm. "She just graduated from Stanford with a degree in computer science, and she'll be joining Dana's team as a project coordinator." I maintained my professional smile, but inside alarm bells were ringing. We didn't have a project coordinator position, and Harold hadn't mentioned hiring anyone new, let alone a family member with no experience. Alicia will be shadowing Dana to learn about Oracle, Harold continued. She has some brilliant ideas for expanding its functionality. Later that day, Harold stopped by my office. Dana, I need you to take Alicia under your wing. Show her everything about Oracle. Everything I questioned. Some of those algorithms took months to develop and refine. She's exceptionally bright, Harold assured me. Stanford's top graduate this year. She'll catch on quickly. I nodded, not wanting to seem uncooperative, but something felt off. In 3 years, Harold had never pushed anyone into my team without thorough interviews and my approval. And now his niece was getting an all-access pass to our most valuable intellectual property. Still, I tried to be a team player. Maybe Alicia would indeed be a valuable addition. Maybe her fresh perspective would bring something new to Oracle. Maybe my concerns were unfounded. I couldn't have been more wrong. Alicia Mitchell waltzed into our office space the next morning, wearing designer clothes that seemed more appropriate for a fashion magazine photo shoot than a tech startup. Her laptop bag probably cost more than my monthly rent, and she carried herself with the confident air of someone who had never been told no in her entire life. "You must be Dana," she said, extending a manicured hand. "Uncle Harold has told me so much about you. I'm really excited to learn about this Oracle thing you've been working on." This Oracle thing had consumed thousands of hours of my life and represented the most advanced predictive analytics software in the industry, but I swallowed my irritation and smiled. "Welcome to the team, Alicia. Let me introduce you to everyone." Brandon and Sophia exchanged glances when I introduced Alicia as our new project coordinator, but they were polite and welcoming. Taylor seemed impressed by Alicia's Stanford credentials, while Ethan merely nodded curtly before returning to his code. I spent that first day giving Alicia an overview of Oracle's architecture and the basic principles of our predictive algorithms. She nodded frequently and asked a few questions, but I couldn't tell if she was genuinely understanding the complex concepts or just pretending to follow along. So basically, it's like Netflix recommendations, but for shopping, she summarized after my hour-long explanation of our multi-layered neural network approach. "Not exactly," I corrected. "Netflix uses collaborative filtering based on user similarity. We're implementing a deep learning system that identifies patterns in behavior that humans wouldn't even recognize. It's more like having a digital sales assistant who knows what you want before you do." "Right, like Netflix," she repeated, checking her phone. "Uncle Harold wants us to meet him for lunch." Over the next few weeks, I attempted to mentor Alicia as instructed. I assigned her simple tasks to gauge her abilities and included her in team meetings. The results were concerning, to say the least. Alicia consistently missed deadlines. The code samples she submitted contained basic errors that a Stanford graduate should never make. When I tried to provide constructive feedback, she became defensive or simply changed the subject. "These variable names need to be more descriptive," I explained, reviewing her attempt at modifying a non-critical component of Oracle. "Does it really matter what we call them if the code works?" she shrugged. "It matters for readability and maintenance," I explained. "In 6 months, another developer needs to understand what this code does without having to decipher it line by line." "Fine," whatever she said, then immediately brightened. "Hey, did Uncle Harold tell you about the new office space we'll be moving to after the funding comes through? The views are amazing." After 3 weeks, I still hadn't seen any evidence that Alicia could contribute meaningfully to our team. Yet strangely, Harold began stopping by our workspace more frequently, always making a point to check on Alicia and ask for her input during discussions. "What do you think, Alicia?" he would ask after technical explanations that I knew she couldn't possibly follow. And Alicia always had an opinion delivered with supreme confidence despite her limited understanding. More disturbing was how Harold would nod approvingly at her suggestions, many of which were either impossible to implement or would have severely compromised Oracle's functionality. One Thursday afternoon, I noticed Alicia and Harold having lunch together in Harold's office. Through the glass walls, I could see Alicia animatedly explaining something, gesturing at her laptop screen, while Harold listened intently, nodding with obvious pride. Brandon approached me as I observed this scene. Have you noticed how much time they spend together? He asked quietly. Hard to miss, I replied. And have you seen the latest company newsletter draft? There's a whole section about fresh innovation at TechVision, featuring Alicia's contributions to Oracle. What contributions? I couldn't hide my shock. Brandon showed me the draft on his phone. There was indeed a featured article about how newcomer Alicia Mitchell is bringing cutting-edge insights to TechVision's flagship product. The article included quotes from Harold praising Alicia's visionary approach and technical brilliance. That same day, during our team status meeting, Alicia interrupted my technical update to announce, I've been thinking about ways to enhance Oracle's recommendation engine, and I believe we should implement a quantum approach to the Rondernan engine. Decision trees. The room fell silent. Quantum approach was meaningless technobabble in this context. Could you elaborate on what you mean by quantum approach? I asked as politely as possible. Using quantum computing principles to make the decisions faster and more accurate, she replied confidently. Ethan couldn't suppress a snort. Quantum computing isn't something you just apply to existing algorithms. It requires completely different architecture, and there aren't commercially viable quantum computers available yet. Alicia's face flushed. Well, that's the kind of innovative thinking we need. Uncle Harold says we should be forward-thinking. After the meeting, Sophia pulled me aside. What's going on, Dana? She clearly doesn't understand the basics of what we're doing yet. Harold treats everything she says like it's revolutionary. I don't know, I admitted, but I'm going to talk to Harold about it. I scheduled a meeting with Harold for the following morning, hoping to diplomatically address my concerns about Alicia's role and capabilities. But when I arrived at his office, I found Alicia already there sitting beside his desk, rather than across from it like a colleague, rather than a junior employee. Dana, Harold greeted me. Perfect timing. Alicia was just sharing some ideas for expanding Oracle's market potential. I forced a smile. That's actually related to what I wanted to discuss. But before I could continue, Harold's assistant interrupted to remind him about an investor call. We'll continue this later, Harold said, standing. Oh, and Dana, could you give Alicia access to Oracle's core algorithm repositories? She has some optimization ideas she wants to explore. As Harold left, Alicia smiled at me triumphantly. Don't worry, I won't break your precious code, she said. I just want to understand it better. That was the moment I knew with absolute certainty that something was very wrong at TechVision. The following Monday, Harold called a team meeting that changed everything. We gathered in the conference room, my team sitting together on one side of the table. Harold arrived with Alicia, both looking unusually pleased with themselves. I have an exciting announcement, Harold began. As we prepare for our Series D funding, we need to optimize our team structure. Alicia has shown exceptional insight into Oracle's potential, so I'm appointing her as co-lead on the project. The room fell silent. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. But Dana, created Oracle Sophia, pointed out. She's been leading the project since inception. And she'll continue to be an essential part of it, Harold assured everyone, not meeting my eyes. But Alicia brings fresh perspective and strategic vision that will be valuable as we scale. Thank you, Uncle Harold, Alicia said, beaming. I'm so excited to help take Oracle to the next level. After the meeting, I requested a private conversation with Harold. You can't be serious about this, I said once his office door was closed. Alicia has been here for less than a month. She doesn't understand the fundamentals of what we've built, let alone have the experience to lead. Harold's expression hardened. Dana, I expected more professionalism from you. Alicia has an exceptional academic background and fresh ideas. This resistance suggests you're not as much of a team player as I thought. This isn't about being a team player, I insisted. It's about maintaining the integrity of a project that's about to secure us $55 million in funding. Richard Lawrence and his team at Bridgewood have vetted Oracle with me specifically. They're investing in my expertise and vision. They're investing in TechVision, Harold corrected coldly. And as CEO, I determine how we structure our teams. I suggest you find a way to work with Alicia, or perhaps TechVision isn't the right fit for you anymore. The threat was clear. I left his office shaking with anger and disbelief. When I returned to my workspace, Alicia was sitting at my desk using my computer. "What are you doing?" I demanded. "Just familiarizing myself with the latest builds," she said casually. "As co-lead, I need access to everything. That's my personal workstation. You can't just use it without asking." She shrugged. "Uncle Harold said I should have full access. Don't worry, I created my own user account." She stood up. "Oh, and he wants the team to brief me on all aspects of Oracle by the end of the week." Over the next few days, Alicia's intrusion into my project accelerated. Harold gave her authority to approve or reject code commits, despite her limited technical understanding. She began scheduling meetings with our beta clients without including me. Worst of all, she started making changes to Oracle's interface and functionality without consulting anyone on the original team. One afternoon, I received an alarming message from Taylor Check, the latest commit to the recommendation engine. Alicia pushed changes that break the core functionality. I reviewed the code and found that Alicia had indeed modified a crucial algorithm, introducing errors that would cause Oracle to generate random recommendations rather than data-driven ones. I immediately reverted the changes and messaged Alicia, explaining the problem. Her response was chilling. "Stop micromanaging. The changes stay. Harold approved them." I escalated the issue to Harold, providing technical documentation of why the changes would break Oracle's functionality. His response was equally disturbing. "Implement Alicia's vision. She's taking Oracle in an exciting new direction." That night I stayed late at the office documenting everything that had happened since Alicia's arrival. I reviewed my contract, particularly the clause about project leadership and intellectual property. According to those terms, I still had final authority over Oracle regardless of Harold's organizational changes. The next morning I arrived to find Ethan clearing out his desk. "What's happening?" I asked. "I quit," he said flatly. "Submitted my resignation an hour ago. This place has become a joke." "Because of Alicia?" He nodded. "Yesterday she rejected my database optimization patch because, and I quote, the tables should be more intuitive. When I tried to explain that database tables aren't meant to be intuitive but efficient, she complained to Harold that I was being condescending. He called me in this morning and suggested I needed to work on my attitude." Before leaving, Ethan handed me a flash drive. "Evidence," he whispered. "Emails, meeting recordings, code comparisons. Harold's been systematically giving Alicia credit for work she didn't do, including some of your core algorithms. I think they're planning to edge you out completely before the funding round closes." After Ethan left, the atmosphere in the office grew even tenser. Brandon and Sophia were walking on eggshells, afraid they might be next. Taylor seemed oblivious, having apparently decided that aligning with Alicia was the safest career move. That afternoon, Richard Lawrence from Bridgewood Partners made a surprise visit to our office. Harold immediately ushered him into the conference room with Alicia by his side. I wasn't invited to the meeting. Through the glass walls, I watched as Alicia confidently presented Oracle to Richard using my slide deck, but with her name on the title page. Harold beamed proudly beside her, occasionally adding comments and gesturing enthusiastically. After 30 minutes, Nicole, Harold's assistant, approached my desk. "Harold wants you to join them," she said. When I entered the conference room, Richard's face lit up. "Dana, there you are. I was just asking about you." "Dana's been working on some peripheral features," Harold interjected quickly. "Alicia has taken the lead on Oracle's core development." Richard looked confused. "But when I was here 2 months ago, Dana walked me through the entire architecture. She created the predictive algorithms, right?" Before Harold could respond, Alicia jumped in. "I've made significant improvements to Dana's initial framework. The version you're seeing today is essentially a complete rebuild based on my Stanford research." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was claiming credit for years of my work right in front of me. "Actually," I began, but Harold shot me a warning look. "Dana has been a valuable team member," he said to Richard. "But Alicia has really taken Oracle to the next level. In fact, she'll be leading the presentation at the funding meeting next week." After Richard left, Harold cornered me in the hallway. "What were you thinking, trying to contradict Alicia in front of our lead investor?" "She's lying about her contributions," I said firmly. "Oracle is my work, not hers. Oracle is TechVision's intellectual property. Harold hissed. And as CEO, I decide who represents our company to investors. If you can't be a team player, Dana, perhaps we should discuss your future here. The message was clear: support the lie or lose my job. As I returned to my desk, I noticed an email from Harold to all staff announcing a reorganization of the development team, with Alicia being promoted to Director of Product Innovation. My new title, Senior Developer, effectively a demotion. The stage was set for confrontation. I just didn't realize how soon it would come. The following morning, I arrived at the office earlier than usual at 7:15. I needed time to gather my thoughts and plan my next steps. The office was empty except for the cleaning staff. I settled at my desk and began reviewing Ethan's flash drive, which contained even more damning evidence than I had imagined. There were emails between Harold and Alicia dating back 6 months long before she joined the company. In one exchange, Harold wrote, "Once the Oracle platform is ready for market, we'll bring you in and position you as the innovator. Dana is brilliant but lacks your presentation skills and pedigree. Investors respond better to people they can relate to." Another email outlined a clear plan. "After Series D funding closes, we'll restructure. You'll take over Oracle completely. Dana will either accept a reduced role or leave. Either way, we'll retain the IP." I was so absorbed in reading these messages that I didn't notice Nicole arriving until she was standing beside my desk. "You're here early," she remarked, eyeing my screen suspiciously. I quickly minimized the email window. "Just catching up on some work." "Harold wants to see you in his office as soon as he arrives," she said, "and he asked me to collect your office keys." "My keys? Why would he need those?" "The office reorganization," she explained with a tight smile. "You'll be moving to the open workspace area. Alicia needs a private office for client meetings." My private office. The one I had earned after 2 years of 70-hour work weeks and delivering the very product that was about to secure their massive funding round. Something inside me snapped. "I'll wait for Harold to discuss that with me directly," I said, turning back to my computer. At 8 o'clock, I heard multiple voices in the hallway. Harold had arrived with Alicia. They were laughing about something as they approached. Nicole joined them, whispering something that made them both look in my direction. Harold frowned and whispered back to Nicole, who nodded and marched toward me with Alicia in tow. Dana, Nicole announced loudly enough for the few early arrivals to hear. "You need to vacate this office immediately. The movers will be here at 9 to rearrange the furniture for Alicia." I remained seated. "I'd like to speak with Harold first." "Harold is busy preparing for the investor meeting," Nicole replied. "This isn't a request. Your new workstation is ready in the general area." "You are not allowed inside anymore," Alicia added, with undisguised satisfaction as Nicole held out her hand for my keys. "This is my office now." I watched as Nicole handed my office keys to Alicia, who immediately began examining the space as if measuring for new curtains. The few colleagues who had arrived early were watching the scene unfold, their expressions ranging from shock to embarrassment on my behalf. Something about Alicia's smug expression, combined with the evidence I had just discovered, gave me a strange sense of calm. I knew exactly what I needed to do. "Fine," I said, gathering my personal items into a box. "I'll clear out." As I packed, Brandon arrived and witnessed what was happening. He approached cautiously. "Dana, what's going on?" "Just a little office reshuffling," I said, loudly enough for Alicia and Nicole to hear. "Apparently Oracle needs new leadership before tomorrow's investor meeting." Brandon looked confused, but helped me carry my things to the assigned desk in the open workspace area, a tiny cubicle far from the development team. "This isn't right," he whispered. "You built Oracle from the ground up. Everyone knows that." "Everyone except Richard Lawrence, apparently," I replied. "But don't worry. This story isn't over yet." Throughout the day, the office buzzed with activity as everyone prepared for the next day's crucial investor meeting. Harold had made it clear that securing Bridgewood's $55 million investment was the company's top priority. Nothing else mattered. Alicia spent the day parading around the office, introducing herself to everyone as Oracle's architect and practicing her presentation. Each time she passed my new cubicle, she would smile condescendingly or make a show of asking if I had completed the support materials she had requested. At 5:30, Harold called a company-wide meeting to review the agenda for the investor presentation. Tomorrow is the most important day in TechVision's history, he announced. Bridgewood Partners will be here with their full investment committee. Richard Lawrence has all but guaranteed their commitment, but we need to deliver a flawless presentation. He continued, Alicia will lead the Oracle demonstration, highlighting the groundbreaking technology she's developed. Brandon and Sophia will provide technical support. Dana, he added as an afterthought, will be available for specific algorithm questions if needed. Sophia raised her hand. Actually, shouldn't Dana lead the technical overview? She designed the core architecture. Harold's smile tightened. We're presenting Oracle as a next-generation platform with Alicia's recent innovations. Bridgewood is investing in our future, not our past work. After the meeting, Sophia found me at my cubicle. This is insane, she whispered. Alicia can barely explain how Oracle works, let alone answer detailed technical questions from the investment committee. I know, I replied calmly, which is exactly why I'm not going to intervene. What do you mean? I lowered my voice. Sometimes you have to let people fail spectacularly on their own terms. That evening, instead of going home, I went to see my lawyer, Rachel. I brought Ethan's flash drive and my employment contract. They violated Clause 27 repeatedly, Rachel confirmed after reviewing the materials. The intellectual property protections and project leadership requirements are crystal clear. If Bridgewood is investing specifically because of Oracle, they need to know who really created it. And if they present false information to investors, I asked. Rachel's expression was grim. That's securities fraud. Misrepresenting material facts to secure investment is illegal. Bridgewood could sue them if the truth comes out after they invest. I left Rachel's office with a clear plan. The next morning would indeed be the most important day in TechVision's history, but not for the reasons Harold thought. I barely slept that night. My mind raced with strategies and contingency plans. By 5 in the morning, I gave up on sleep entirely and began preparing for the day ahead. I reviewed every email document and code repository that proved Oracle was my creation. I compiled a timeline showing my contributions alongside Alicia's minimal and often detrimental input. At 6:30, I called Brandon. I need your help, I told him. Name it, he replied without hesitation. I need access to the presentation materials for today's meeting. Can you send them to me? There was a brief pause. Alicia has locked down the final presentation. She's worried about last-minute changes. Of course she is, I muttered. Can you at least tell me what's in it? It's bad, Dana. She's claiming direct credit for your predictive algorithm. There's even a slide showing how she evolved your original work into something commercially viable. My blood boiled, but I kept my voice steady. And Harold approved this. He helped write it. They're presenting Oracle as Alicia's brainchild that she developed while at Stanford with you as just part of the implementation team. This was even worse than I had anticipated. They weren't just sidelining me. They were erasing my contributions entirely. Brandon, I need one more favor. Can you record the presentation? Already planning to, he assured me. This whole thing stinks, and I want evidence. Next, I called Sophia. Are you prepared for today? I asked. To watch Alicia take credit for your work while Harold beams like a proud father. Not really. I need you to play along, I told her. Act like everything is normal. But if any investors ask technical questions about Oracle's architecture, defer to me. What are you planning, Dana? Justice, I replied simply. Just be ready to witness it. My final call was to Ethan. Though he had left the company, he remained a crucial ally. I need confirmation on something, I said after explaining the situation. In the original Oracle specification documents, whose digital signature appears on the architectural design. Yours, he confirmed. Every page, every revision. I have copies of all the original specs. Harold can't erase those. And the code repositories, who's listed as the primary author of the core algorithms. You again. The Git history is clear. You wrote over 80% of the critical code. The rest was mostly Brandon and me with some UI contributions from Sophia. Alicia hasn't contributed a single line of functioning code. Armed with this confirmation, I made my most important call of the day, to Richard Lawrence at Bridgewood Partners. Mr. Lawrence, this is Dana Parker from TechVision. Dana, good to hear from you. Looking forward to today's presentation. That's actually why I'm calling. There's something you should know before the meeting. I explained the situation carefully, sticking to verifiable facts rather than accusations. I told him about my role in creating Oracle, the clause in my contract, and the recent attempts to reposition Alicia as the project's leader. That's concerning, Richard said after a long pause. Oracle is the primary reason we're considering this investment. I understand, and I'm not trying to derail the funding. I just believe Bridgewood deserves the truth about what you're investing in and who created it. I appreciate your integrity, Dana. How do you suggest we proceed? Let the presentation happen as planned. The truth will become evident during the technical discussion. After ending the call, I took a deep breath and prepared for battle. I dressed in my most professional outfit and arrived at the office exactly 1 hour before the scheduled investor meeting. The office was buzzing with nervous energy. Staff were straightening furniture, wiping down surfaces, and setting up refreshments in the conference room. Harold and Alicia were sequestered in his office doing a final review of the presentation. Through the glass walls, I could see Alicia practicing her delivery while Harold nodded approvingly. Nicole approached my cubicle with a forced smile. Dana, Harold wants you in the meeting, but asks that you only speak if directly questioned about technical details. Otherwise, please support Alicia's presentation. Of course, I replied pleasantly. I'm here to support the team. My calm response seemed to unsettle her. She had clearly expected resistance. Good. And please remember that this funding is crucial for everyone's future at the company. The implied threat wasn't subtle, but I simply nodded. I understand completely. At 9:30, the Bridgewood team arrived. Richard Lawrence led a group of 5 people, including 2 technical analysts who had previously met with me to evaluate Oracle. Richard greeted Harold warmly, then made a point of seeking me out. Dana, good to see you again, he said, shaking my hand firmly. I'm looking forward to hearing more about Oracle's evolution since our last meeting. Harold quickly inserted himself between us. Richard, let me introduce you to Alicia Mitchell, our Director of Product Innovation and the creative force behind Oracle's current iteration. As Alicia stepped forward to shake Richard's hand, I caught his eye. He gave me a nearly imperceptible nod before turning his attention to Alicia. The meeting began with Harold's overview of TechVision's market position and growth projections. Then came the moment of truth as Alicia took center stage to present Oracle. Good morning, everyone, she began confidently. I'm excited to share with you the groundbreaking technology I've developed. What followed was a presentation filled with technical jargon. She clearly didn't understand explanations that contradicted themselves and claims that anyone with basic knowledge of machine learning would recognize as impossible. One of Bridgewood's technical analysts, James, began asking questions. Could you explain how your neural network processes nonlinear data points without creating feedback loops? Alicia faltered. Well, the algorithm uses advanced techniques to optimize the data flow through multiple layers of processing. Could you be more specific about those techniques? James pressed. Alicia looked desperately at Harold, who intervened. Perhaps we should move on to the market applications rather than getting bogged down in technical details. But Richard wasn't letting it go. Actually, the technical architecture is quite important to us. Dana, perhaps you could help clarify. I recall you explained this quite elegantly during our previous meeting. All eyes turned to me. Harold's expression was a clear warning to toe the line while Alicia looked like she wanted to disappear. It was time to spring the trap. I smiled at Richard. I'd be happy to explain the technical architecture, I said, standing up. But first, I think there's an important matter of intellectual property that needs to be clarified. Harold's face went pale. This isn't the time, Dana, he said through gritted teeth. Actually, I think it's exactly the time, I replied, maintaining my professional composure. Mr. Lawrence and the Bridgewood team are about to invest $55 million based on Oracle's capabilities. They deserve complete transparency about its development. I turned to the investors. Oracle's core predictive algorithm, which achieves the 92% accuracy rate you've been shown, was developed by me. I wrote the original code, designed the architecture, and led the team that implemented it. My employment contract, specifically Clause 27, stipulates that any technology I develop remains under my supervision until final implementation with written consent required for any leadership changes. The room fell silent. Richard Lawrence leaned forward, his expression intensely focused. Furthermore, I continued, I have documentation proving that the presentation you just saw contains false claims about Oracle's development. Alicia Mitchell joined TechVision less than 6 weeks ago and has made no substantive contributions to the codebase. This is preposterous, Harold sputtered, his face reddening. Dana is disgruntled because of recent organizational changes. Alicia has been instrumental in advancing Oracle beyond Dana's initial framework. Then perhaps Alicia can answer a few technical questions, I suggested calmly. James, the technical analyst, turned to Alicia. Could you explain how your algorithm handles concept drift in the predictive models? Alicia looked like a deer in headlights. Concept drift. Well, we use advanced monitoring to identify when the models need recalibration. That's a general approach, not a specific method, James noted. What specific detection mechanisms do you employ? Explicit drift detection algorithms or model-based approaches? Alicia's face flushed. I'd have to consult my technical notes for the specific implementation details. I pulled out my laptop. Perhaps I can help. The Oracle platform uses a hybrid approach combining statistical process control for explicit drift detection with an adaptive windowing technique I developed specifically for behavioral prediction models. Here's the original architectural diagram with my digital signature dated 18 months ago. I projected the document onto the screen. My name and digital signature were clearly visible on every page. And here are the Git repository logs showing code authorship. As you can see, my contributions represent over 80% of the core algorithm, with additional work from Brandon Cooper and former team member Ethan Wright. Richard Lawrence turned to Harold. Is this accurate, Harold? Before Harold could respond, Alicia made a desperate attempt to salvage the situation. I enhanced Dana's basic framework with innovative approaches from my Stanford research. The current version is significantly more advanced than her original work. Can you provide documentation of these enhancements? Richard asked. They're still being documented, Alicia stammered. Brandon chose that moment to speak up. Actually, I have access to all code commits for the past 6 months. The only changes made since Alicia joined the company have either been reverted due to functionality issues or were simple UI modifications. Sophia nodded in agreement. As the UI specialist on the team, I can confirm that Alicia's only contributions were cosmetic suggestions, most of which weren't implemented because they would have compromised usability. Harold was visibly sweating now. This is simply a misunderstanding about roles and contributions. The important thing is that Oracle works and delivers the results we've promised. It works because of Dana's algorithm, Brandon insisted. And according to her contract, she maintains supervision rights over the technology she developed. Richard Lawrence pulled out his phone and appeared to be reviewing documents. Harold, Clause 14 of our investment agreement specifically requires accurate representation of key personnel and intellectual property. If Oracle is the primary asset we're investing in, we need clarity on who developed it and who will continue to lead its evolution. Harold's expression wavered between anger and panic. Dana is a valued team member, of course, but Alicia brings strategic vision that will take Oracle to market more effectively. At that moment, Richard's phone rang. He checked the caller ID and said, I need to take this. It's our legal counsel. He put the call on speakerphone. Go ahead, Jennifer. Richard, I've reviewed the documentation Miss Parker sent over. The employment contract is clear about intellectual property rights and project leadership. If TechVision has been misrepresenting the key developer of their primary technology to secure investment that constitutes securities fraud under SEC guidelines. The conference room went completely silent. It was precisely 8:06 in the morning. Richard looked directly at Harold. Harold, I think we need to have a frank discussion about Oracle's development and leadership. Harold's face had lost all color. Of course, Richard. Perhaps we should take a brief break and... Richard cut him off. No, let's address this now. He turned to Alicia. Miss Mitchell, based on the evidence presented, it appears your role in Oracle's development has been significantly overstated. Alicia looked to Harold for rescue, but he was staring at the table, avoiding everyone's eyes. Richard continued, now addressing Harold directly. Your daughter just voided the Series D grant by misrepresenting herself as the creator of Oracle. Our investment committee cannot proceed under these circumstances. Niece, Harold corrected weakly. Alicia is my niece, not my daughter. The relationship doesn't matter, Richard replied. What matters is that you attempted to position a junior employee with 6 weeks of tenure as the architect of your company's primary asset while sidelining the actual developer. That's not just poor judgment, Harold. It's potentially fraudulent. Harold finally found his voice. Richard, please. This is a simple misunderstanding. We can clarify roles and move forward. TechVision needs this investment to scale. What TechVision needed was honesty, Richard replied. My team has been thoroughly impressed with Oracle's capabilities, but we invest in people as much as technology. The leadership and integrity issues revealed today cannot be overlooked. He turned to me. Dana, would you be willing to meet separately with our team? We'd like to better understand your vision for Oracle's future development. I nodded. I'd be happy to. Good, Richard said. As for the current investment round with TechVision, I'm afraid we'll need to suspend discussions pending further review of these issues. Harold looked devastated. Richard, please reconsider. $55 million. Is too much money to invest in a situation with such significant leadership and integrity concerns, Richard finished firmly. I suggest you sort out your internal issues before seeking additional funding. As the Bridgewood team gathered their materials to leave, Richard approached me. My office, 2 o'clock, I'd like to discuss some possibilities. I nodded, trying to maintain my professional demeanor despite the surge of vindication I felt. Harold and Alicia remained frozen in their seats as everyone filed out of the conference room. The confrontation had ended in complete victory, but the story wasn't over yet. The aftermath was swift and dramatic. By noon, word had spread throughout the company about the failed investment meeting and the revelations about Alicia's false claims. Harold remained locked in his office with the blinds drawn, while Alicia hastily cleared out her things, my former office, and left the building without speaking to anyone. Nicole, who had been so dismissive of me just hours earlier, now avoided eye contact as she hurried past my cubicle. The power dynamics had shifted completely in the span of a single morning. Brandon and Sophia found me at my desk, where I was calmly organizing my files. That was the most professionally executed takedown I've ever witnessed, Brandon said with undisguised admiration. You didn't lose your cool once. Sophia nodded in agreement. The way you let Alicia hang herself with technical questions she couldn't answer. Masterful. I just told the truth, I replied. The rest took care of itself. At 1:30, Harold finally emerged from his office and asked to speak with me privately. His usual confident demeanor had vanished, replaced by a haggard look of defeat. Dana, he began, once we were alone, I want to apologize for the misunderstanding regarding your role in Oracle's development. Misunderstanding, I repeated. You deliberately positioned your niece to take credit for my work. You were willing to erase 3 years of my contributions to advance her career. Harold couldn't meet my eyes. It wasn't like that. Alicia showed promise, and I wanted to give her an opportunity. Things just escalated. Things don't just escalate into securities fraud, Harold. You made calculated decisions every step of the way. He sighed heavily. What do you want, Dana? A promotion, equity, name your price to help salvage this situation with Bridgewood. I'm meeting with Richard Lawrence at 2 o'clock, I told him. But not to salvage your relationship with Bridgewood. I'm exploring options for myself. Harold's expression darkened. You can't take Oracle with you. It belongs to TechVision. Actually, according to Clause 27 of my contract, which you signed, I maintain significant rights to the technology I developed. My lawyer will be contacting you about that. I stood to leave, but Harold wasn't finished. This company gave you the platform to develop Oracle, he said, his voice rising. Without TechVision's resources, you would have nothing. Without my algorithm, TechVision would have nothing, I corrected him. That's the truth you tried so hard to bury, and now everyone knows it. I left Harold sitting there, finally facing the consequences of his actions. As I walked away, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. The betrayal had hurt, but standing up for myself and my work had been empowering. My meeting with Richard Lawrence exceeded all expectations. Bridgewood wasn't just interested in Oracle, they were interested in me. "We invest in people as much as technology," Richard reiterated. What I saw today was not just a brilliant engineer, but someone with integrity and leadership qualities. He laid out a proposal that took my breath away. Bridgewood would provide $5 million in seed funding for a new company with me, as CEO and majority shareholder. They would help recruit a management team while I assembled my technical staff. "What about TechVision's claim to Oracle?" I asked. "Your contract gives you significant leverage," Richard assured me. "And frankly, after today's performance, I don't think Harold is in a position to fight you. But to be safe, I suggest developing a new platform based on your expertise rather than directly porting Oracle's code." Before leaving Bridgewood's office, I called Brandon and Sophia. "Are you interested in a new venture?" I asked them. "Same. Work better culture with actual recognition for your contributions." Their enthusiasm was immediate and unanimous. 2 days later, I submitted my resignation to Harold. He accepted it without argument, likely advised by lawyers that a clean break was the safest option given the contract issues. Brandon and Sophia resigned the following week, along with 2 other engineers who had witnessed the investor meeting debacle. The next 6 months were the most challenging and rewarding of my career. We founded Verity Analytics, developing a new predictive platform that improved upon Oracle's core concepts. I assembled a team based on talent and character rather than connections, and our company culture emphasized integrity and credit where it was due. Meanwhile, TechVision struggled to recover from the failed funding round. Without Oracle's development team, they couldn't deliver on client promises. Their valuation plummeted, and 9 months after my departure, Harold was forced to sell the company for a fraction of its former value. 1 year after founding Verity, we secured $20 million in Series A funding from a consortium led by Bridgewood Partners. Our valuation exceeded $100 million, and our client list included 3 Fortune 500 companies. Richard Lawrence joined us for a celebration dinner after closing the funding round. "I've been in venture capital for 20 years, he told our team, "and I've never seen a more satisfying turnaround story. From nearly having your work stolen to building something even better, it's remarkable." Later that evening, as I looked around at my team, people who respected each other and collaborated with integrity, I reflected on the lessons of the past 18 months. The experience had taught me that technical brilliance alone isn't enough. You need to protect your work, document your contributions, and stand firm when others try to diminish your value. Most importantly, I learned that integrity isn't just a personal virtue. It's a business asset that shapes company culture and determines long-term success. The clause I had insisted on including in my contract had been my insurance policy against exactly the kind of nepotism and theft that Harold had attempted. It was a small detail that ultimately changed the course of my career and created opportunities I couldn't have imagined. Today, whenever I interview potential employees, I share a version of my story as a lesson in both caution and empowerment. Know your worth, I tell them. Document your contributions. And never be afraid to stand up for yourself when others try to take credit for your work. The $55 million that Harold lost through his nepotism and dishonesty became the foundation of something much more valuable. A company built on genuine innovation, proper recognition, and uncompromising integrity. Have you ever had your work or ideas stolen by someone else? How did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story of standing up against workplace injustice resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of professional triumph over adversity. Remember, sometimes the fine print can be your best protection against those who would take advantage of your talents. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I hope it inspires you to protect your own work and stand firm in your value.